Hello friends, it's Miss Eliza, Children's Librarian at the Waukee Public Library. For this month's Elementary Maker project, we are going to be making a bow and arrow out of cardboard and a paper straw. We're gonna make this bow and arrow out of super simple supplies. To start with the bow, you're gonna need some cardboard, and you can just use any kind of a cardboard box, a thicker kind that you have on hand. You're gonna need a pencil to trace the shape and sturdy scissors to cut that out. You might wanna have a grown-up help you cutting out the cardboard because it can be a little bit tough. You're gonna need some white glue or hot glue to stick it all together, and then you're also gonna need some rubber bands to use as the string. You might wanna have a couple on hand just to see what size works best. And then you might also want to secure that with some duct tape. So we also use duct tape to decorate ours. That's why it's bright green, but you could also decorate it with markers, paint, stickers, whatever you have on hand. So you might want some decorating supplies as well. And then to make the arrows, we are using paper straws. You could also use plastic straws or like a wooden dowel, but these are super safe, so it's easy to use. And then the end of our arrow is going to just be a little pom-pom. These are the 1-inch kind, and we're gonna stick those together with some glue dots today. Those are like those little sticky rounds of glue, but you could also, of course, use white glue and just make sure that you let them dry before you use them. To get started, you're gonna wanna make your bow shape, and there's a lot of different shaped bows out there in the world, depending on how far you want your arrow to go or what exactly they're being used for. But for this super simple one, we're just going to make the shape of kind of a shallow C. So not one with a super deep curve, just kind of a shallow C shape. And you're gonna wanna cut out 4 of the same shape. So you can kind of trace one or draw one out, cut that one out, and then use that to make the other 4. So I'm gonna go ahead and trace the one that I already made. It doesn't have to be super precise. That's kind of one of the cool things about this project. You can kind of do your own design or test out a couple different designs and see what you'd like. So I traced it on here. I'm gonna cut this out, trace it, and cut 4 of them, and I'll be right back. All right, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of the same shape cut out of cardboard. I'm gonna take 2 of those and set them aside, and 2 of them are gonna be used to make the part of the bow where the arrow goes through. So we're going to need to make about a 1-inch cut right in the middle of each of these. So you could use a ruler if you wanna be really precise, but I'm just gonna kind of eyeball it by putting them next to each other, kind of one on top of the other, and finding the middle spot and just making a little bit of a line on both of them. Give it about 1 inch. There we go. And then I'm just going to cut along those lines so that we end up with 4 pieces. You'll have this little piece in the middle that we don't need. And we're going to have 4 pieces out of our 2. So you can see we've got kind of 2 of each end. So now what we're gonna do is stack these up and glue them kind of like a sandwich. So we're gonna start with the base of 1, and then we're going to find our 2 halves, add glue here to 1, and then glue it right down on the end. So it's gonna leave this little space in the center here. We're gonna take another half, pile that up. So we're gonna go, so there's a full arrow and then 2 halves on either side, and then we're gonna put the last one right on top. Okay, so in real life, you would probably want to let this dry so that all of the layers are really squished together. You can kind of line it up while it's still wet with your hands to make sure that it's as streamlined as possible and all lined up as best as it can be. And you can kind of see there's a little hole through the middle. That's where we had those halves, and that's where the arrow is gonna go through. So you could even put some clamps like binder clips or rubber bands around the edge of this to really squish it together and kind of let it dry overnight before you move on. But we're just gonna go ahead because we're just doing a video today. So you can also decorate it from here. This would be a really good time to do that. You can put designs on it, put your name on it. Like I said, we kind of wrapped ours in duct tape. If you do that, you just have to make sure that you cut a little hole so that you can still get the arrow through. But I'm gonna leave this one plain and we'll just keep going. So to attach the string, what you're gonna do is take a rubber band, and we just have kind of a regular sized rubber band here, and cut a slit in it so you have one long strip instead of a round rubber band. There's a bunch of different ways that you can attach this, but this is the one that we found the simplest. So you're gonna put a dot of glue, either white glue, or I'm gonna use these glue dots that are kind of sticky adhesive in a round. I'm actually gonna tear this glue dot in two so it works twice, but you're gonna put some glue down, and then put your rubber band. You're gonna put some glue down, and then put your rubber band right on top of it on one end. And then you're going to go to the other side with the other end of your rubber band. So we're not gonna go straight down to this side, we're gonna pull it across and around to the other side. So we've got kind of the rubber band here and then looping across to this side. That's just gonna help make it a little more secure. You also wanna stretch the rubber band out. So you can see mine has kind of a lot of room. So I'm gonna stretch it because it needs to be nice and taut for the arrow to project. We'll talk about that more in a minute, but you're going to want to stretch it a little bit and then put your glue down and have it kind of lined up on that other side. Pretty close to the edge because you do want it to have a good distance to travel. You can see I kind of have a twist in mine, so I'm gonna take it off and try to get it as straight as I can. It doesn't matter if there's a little bit of a twist, but if you can get it straight, that's a little bit easier to maneuver, and you can play a little bit around with how tight it is. Maybe it'll make it go faster or fly higher, something to experiment with. Once you're happy with where the string is, you can cut the tail end off. And you probably want to secure this with some tape or some heavy duty glue. Like if you had some hot glue, that would work. I'm going to use a little bit of duct tape to secure the ends, and I'll be right back. All right, so I've secured our arrow. You can see I can tug on the rubber band, and that's awesome because that's how those arrows are gonna go flying. I did secure it with some duct tape on either side, and I used kind of a lot because again, I didn't let the glue dry in mine, so it's not as secure as hopefully yours will be. If you've decorated your arrow, you're gonna have patterns, or you can add some stickers or more duct tape at this point, whatever you like, but it doesn't have to be pretty. It just has to work. So next we're gonna make the arrows and then we'll test it out. So those are super simple. You're just gonna take your straw, your dowel, whatever you have, add some glue onto the very end of it. Again, I'm using these glue dots because they stick really well onto pom-poms. So you're gonna just take your little pom-pom, stick it onto the glue or the glue dot, hold it for a second so that it takes, again, if you're using white glue, you're gonna really wanna let these dry, but I'm gonna go ahead and just go with this one. So then to use your arrow, you're going to slide the long part through the hole that we made so you can see the wall through there. So you're gonna slide that through and you're going to have it catch the end of the rubber band. Then you're going to pull that rubber band back, and what do you think is going to happen? That's right, so the arrow goes flying, and we learned in our last rubber band project that that is because of the law of conservation of energy. Rubber bands are elastic. That means they're stretchy, and so when we pull on the rubber band, it's creating potential energy. When we release that rubber band, it turns into kinetic energy, which transfers right to the item that's on top of it, and that sends that arrow flying. Let's make another one. Just put some glue right on our pom-pom, attach it to our arrow shaft, make sure it's stuck together really good, slide it through, and you're gonna wanna make sure that it catches that rubber band, hold both of them so you're pulling the rubber band and the end of the arrow, and then you can send it flying. Wow, that one even hit the ceiling. So once you've got it set up and working, a really fun thing to do is to set yourself some challenges. See how far you can get an arrow to go, see how accurate you can get an arrow to go. Maybe you want to set up a target and try practicing that way. You saw at the beginning of the video that I made a little tower out of paper cups to knock down, and that can be really fun. You can see how big of a tower you can knock down. How strong is your arrow? You can try making different sizes of bows and arrows and see which of those work best. Just make sure that you never point your arrow at somebody else or at yourself, because even though they are soft, they can get moving pretty fast, and we want to be as safe as possible. All right, I'm going to make one more arrow here. You can also turn this into a little bit of an art project by dipping the end of your pom-pom arrow into some paint. Make sure you're someplace that you can get a little bit messy, like maybe outside on the grass. And then you can shoot your arrow onto a piece of paper and see if you can make some art, some painted art, using your bow and arrow. All right, let's try to give this one more shot. I'm gonna move my tower up. So in real life, you'd want a little bit more distance, but I'm gonna see if I can knock this tower over. Excellent. Thanks for joining us for this maker project. Remember to be safe with your bow and arrow, have fun, and we will see you next month. Bye-bye.